All right, today we're diving into an ancient story of conquest, giants, and a leader's final heartbreaking plea. We're going to walk through Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse by verse, and really try to see it using cinematic moments to lock this incredible story into our minds. So let's keep that question in mind as we go, because what we're about to see is this incredible clash of armies, the fall of an actual legend, and a really intense personal moment between a leader and his God. And it all starts on the march. So, the Israelite army, they've just scored this huge victory. But you know what? There is absolutely no time to rest. They just turn north and start heading up the road toward a brand new and frankly pretty intimidating territory called Bashan. Okay, let's get right into it. Verse 1, I want you to picture this. The army is just marching up this dusty road, and then, all of a sudden, coming over the hill right in front of them is this massive force led by the superimposing King Og. Everything just grinds to a halt. Then, bam, verse 2. Imagine the camera just zooms right in on Moses, and a voice, totally clear, totally calm, cuts right through all that tension and speaks directly to him saying, "Don't be afraid of him. I have already handed him over to you." And you can just see the fear on his face melt away, replaced with this rock-solid resolve. And verse 3, well, that's the explosion that follows the promise, right? The battle is just immediate and absolute. Just picture this powerful, disciplined charge that just completely shatters Og's army. The key phrase to remember here is no survivors remaining. The final image, a silent battlefield with only one army left standing. Okay, so now we get to verse 4 and what this number 60 really means. See, the victory wasn't just about winning that one battle. It was about the entire kingdom. They took 60 cities. Imagine you're looking at a map of the whole region, and one by one, 60 little lights just blink out and then relight in a totally new color. It was a complete and total takeover. Verses 5 and 6 kind of show us what that takeover looks like on the ground. So for verse 5, just imagine you're standing there looking up at this impossibly high stone wall with a massive gate sealed shut by these thick, heavy bars. I mean, these places were built to last forever. But then verse 6 hits us with the grim reality of ancient conquest. The image here is a city street inside those walls that is now just completely silent and empty. The text is blunt, and it shows the brutal, total nature of this victory. Then, verse 7 completely flips the scene. That silence we just pictured, it's now broken by the sounds of soldiers gathering up the spoils of war. You can almost see them, right? Leading out these huge herds of cattle and sheep, carrying out all kinds of treasures and goods. The cities are being stripped of all their wealth, and it all becomes the property of the winners. All right, now the story takes a turn. We're shifting away from the chaos of battle and into a pretty stunning discovery. We're about to find out exactly why King Og was such a legend. So let's map this whole thing out. Verse 8 is like this epic drone shot. It starts at a deep river canyon, flies north over plains and hills, and ends on this majestic snow-capped mountain. That's the whole territory, from Arnon to Hermon. Then verse 9 adds this cool little detail. As the camera kind of holds on that mountain, you see names appearing and fading. Sirion, Sinir, showing us what different groups of people called it. And then verse 10 pans back out, and the entire region on our map just starts to glow. It's a massive piece of real estate, now under totally new ownership. And now for the big reveal in verse 11. So why was this victory such a huge deal? Well, because Og wasn't just some other king. Picture this, a lineup of these towering, shadowy figures, giants. And one by one, they just fade away, until only one is left standing. Og. He was the last of his kind. They had just defeated an actual legend. And you know what? In his capital city, they found the proof. The second half of verse 11 tells us about his bed. It was made of iron and it measured 9 cubits long. That is a staggering 13.5 feet long. Just picture soldiers walking into this dark room and their torchlight falls on this colossal black iron bed frame. One of them leans his spear against it, and the spear looks like a little toothpick. And to put that into perspective, Og's bed was nearly the size of a modern SUV. I mean, think about that. This wasn't just a bed for a really tall guy. It was more like a throne, built for a being of just incredible scale. It was basically a monument to the giant who slept there. So, okay, After a victory this massive, what happens next? Well, you have to govern, right? The battle is over. Now the administration begins. So let's watch how this unfolds. Verse 12, you can just see Moses standing over this big map, drawing a line to mark off the southern part and handing it over to the tribes of Reuben and Gad. Then, verse 13, he gestures to this huge northern territory, the land of giants, and gives it to the half-tribe of Manasseh. And verse 14 is really cool. It's like a close-up shot of a leader named Jair driving a stake into the ground, claiming a bunch of towns and renaming them after himself. Talk about putting your personal stamp on history. The next few verses get even more specific, almost like they're drawing official property lines. Verse 15 shows this formal transfer, with the territory of Gilead being assigned to Machir. Verse 16 takes us back to that map view, with these bright lines tracing the paths of rivers, marking them as these permanent, unchangeable borders. And finally, verse 17 pans over to the shoreline of that vast, lifeless salt sea, what we call the Dead Sea, setting the final southern boundary. And with that, the division is complete. So with all the eastern lands conquered and divided up, a totally new command is issued. And this one isn't about what's already been won. It's all about the bigger mission that's still waiting for them, just across the river. And this is really a test of their unity. In verse 18, you can just picture Moses talking to the warriors from the tribes that just got their land. He points across the Jordan River and gives them the command, you are not done. You're going to cross over, armed for battle. Then verse 19 gives us some context. If the soldiers were to look back, they'd see their families and their new homes all safe. But verse 20 snaps the focus right back to the mission. You will fight until your brothers also have their land. Only then can you come back home. You can imagine their hands tightening on their weapons. Now verse 21 zooms in on a really pivotal moment. Moses turns to his successor, Joshua. He puts a hand on his shoulder and says, your own eyes have seen all of this. You were there. This isn't some history lesson. This is a transfer of lived experience, a memory that Joshua is meant to use as a weapon in the future. And verse 22, well, that's the core principle being passed from one leader to the next. Imagine Moses looking Joshua right in the eye and delivering this foundational truth. The image here is Joshua's face. As you see, any worry he had just get replaced by this solid, unshakable confidence. He gets it. He totally gets it. And this brings us to the final and most personal part of the entire story. After all the victories, all the planning, the narrative suddenly turns inward. It focuses on the leader's one final request. The tone just shifts completely here. Verse 23, just picture Moses, looking old now and so weary, making this very personal appeal. In verse 24, you can almost see flashes of past miracles in his mind as he's recounting God's greatness, trying to build his case. And then, verse 25 is just raw emotion. We see him standing on a hill, looking across the river at this beautiful green land. His hand is outstretched, and he's just begging, please, just let me cross over and see it. Verse 26 is the answer, and it is swift, it's absolute, and it's heartbreaking. As Moses is staring at that beautiful land, just imagine dark clouds instantly rolling in, completely blocking the view. A voice thunders, enough, do not speak to me of this again. And just like that, the door to his lifelong dream slams shut. And the final verses just lay out this tragic irony. Verse 27, Moses is commanded to climb a high mountain. And from the top, he gets this breathtaking, panoramic view of the entire Promised Land. He can see all of it, but he can't touch it. Then, verse 28, from that same mountaintop, he looks down and he sees his successor, Joshua, getting the people ready for the crossing. The future is literally happening right there below him. And finally, verse 29 ends on this quiet, somber note. So he stayed in the valley. His journey was over. And that leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? A story of just incredible victory mixed with this profound personal sacrifice. It really makes you wonder, what does it mean to lead people to a destination that you yourself are forbidden to ever enter?